We will start with Bill 1721 from Pat Murray, Chief of Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll do my best to get this done in as close to 3 minutes as possible. For the record, Pat Murray, Chief of Staff to the County Executive. I'd like to thank the Council for raising the issue with Resolution 9520, which called on us to examine creating a Recreation and Parks Foundation. I'd especially like to thank Councilman Crandall for working with us on developing this proposal. The councilman was very thoughtful on the matter, open to hearing our position, and really helped to inform our thinking. Few of you may have seen the Maryland Matters article recently about polarization in Annapolis, but I'm proud to say that in Baltimore County, we still know how to work across party lines to get things done on areas where we share common ground. I'd also like to thank the other members of the council who are willing to meet with me as we develop the process. And finally, I'd like to thank Tom Bostwick and his Adam Phillips for their help navigating the drafting process. When we considered the question of a Rec and Parks Foundation, we reflected on the work that we did with the county's COVID-19 Emergency Relief Fund. And very briefly, to remind you, we established that fund, the Baltimore Community Foundation, early in the pandemic because we believed we would need to raise charitable funds to support community rebuilding efforts. Our strategy on that front obviously changed with the passage of CARES, but the idea of partnering with a fiscal sponsor to achieve the intent of Resolution 9520 made sense for the same reasons that we did that with the COVID Relief Fund. Namely, nonprofit governance and compliance fall outside of what you might consider the traditional core competencies of government. What Bill 1721 proposes is very similar to that model. The bill would authorize the county to enter into an agreement with a nonprofit organization for the purpose of hosting a fund to accept and manage charitable donations to benefit the county or county residents. It would authorize elected officials to solicit gifts to the county or the fund for the benefit of a county program or governmental activity, or for the benefit of a charitable organization based in the county or that provides services to county residents. It would require the county administrative officer or her designee to publish a report on donations that are received, and it would further prohibit solicitation of lobbyists. I value your time, but I'd like to say just a couple of words about the background that led us to this point. First of all, it's important to note that what we are proposing is in addition to existing charitable organizations, not in place of. So local rec councils, for example, would still be able to raise money the way that they do today. This proposal isn't designed to touch those systems. What it is designed to do is to help us secure philanthropic investments that grassroots nonprofit organizations might not be able to reach. For example, a large multinational corporation with a footprint at a location like Trade Point Atlantic with a philanthropic office on the West Coast isn't likely to contribute to a rec council because the odds are good they don't know what a rec council is. But they will be more likely to support efforts through a county recognized fiscal sponsor, which could be used to support the same kind of local rec initiatives. Second, what we're proposing is a first step, not an end game. If there's significant demonstrated interest in a Rec and Park Foundation, we can always go down that path. Third, what we're proposing gives us a little bit more flexibility than a Rec and Parks Foundation. We'll be able to solicit, for example, contributions to support programs like summer youth employment or to support older residents in the county. And fourth and finally, what we're proposing would allow us to accept contributions from foundations who want to invest in the county but cannot give directly to government under their bylaws and charter. Again, I want to thank the members of the council for your consideration, and on behalf of the county executive, I respectfully request your favorable consideration of the bill. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, or to let Mike Moeller pick the music with the next bill.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Murray. Are there any questions, comments from the members?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go right ahead, Councilman Crandall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You'll notice on the agenda, this is a rare instance where an administration bill is also co-sponsored by a council member. I don't recall that happening all that much. And the reason that it's happened is, if you recall, late last year, we passed the resolution that Mr. Murray referred to. And unlike some other resolutions that the council has done, that we don't get the immediate results that we expect of our resolution, or they sort of go off into the ether. The administration took this seriously, and I do appreciate their willingness to inform me of their process and their thoughtful approach to how this would work. Now, when we passed that resolution that I sponsored last year, my vision, quite honestly, was a little bit different than this bill. But the administration recognized that there are existing entities that can help us secure this corporate philanthropy that we are probably missing out on, without creating a sort of startup foundation and all that would go into that. So this bill really, I'm really excited about it. I think it's a bit overshadowed by the NODAC that we'll be talking about next, I believe. But this bill is, as Mr. Murray said, it's the first step in the county being able to attract this investment that corporations already want to make and that foundations already want to make in Baltimore County. There just isn't a sort of clean and credible mechanism in order for them to do so. So as we consider this for vote next week, I just encourage my colleagues to wholeheartedly support this bill. This is something that this council, I believe anyway, will be remembered for. This is, I think, a big moment in Baltimore County history where we can help secure millions of dollars for people that take advantage of all the facilities and the programs that Baltimore County has to offer, and we can add millions of dollars to the pot in order to support these programs and these facilities to make them that much better. So, Mr. Murray, thank you and your staff and the law office and Ms. Johnson and Rec and Parks for taking this seriously and getting us to this point. I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Councilman Crandall. I certainly appreciate your leadership on the issue, and just like to co-sign to all your comments in terms of the support and the work of the administration. I think this is certainly welcome and needed, and I like the idea of taking a more global approach to make sure we scoop up everybody in this so that we not having a whole bunch of little smaller entities running around. So I think this is a great idea, and I think it will help the citizens of Baltimore County, especially as it relates to recreation. Any other comments or questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go right ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Murray, thank you for that explanation. You did a very good job at explaining how funds would be received through from philanthropic sources to Baltimore County. I was wondering if you could comment on the method in which they're dispersed. Would they go through the ordinary budget process? Would it be a little more nimble than the budget process? So could you spend a moment to discuss how those funds would be dispersed throughout the county?
Sure. So our initial thinking, Councilman, is that we will be soliciting restricted gifts. So the idea is that we would ask, for example, a corporate or philanthropic organization to give money for the purpose of fill in the blank, a rec center or a senior center or whatever it is that we've made that ask for. And so in the grant agreement, there will be a clear nexus between money and how the money will be dispersed. I believe, and I confess that I'm not an expert on the gift acceptance process through the council, but I believe that we're going to be a little bit more nimble through this process, but certainly there will be all of the guardrails in terms of transparency and notification. I mean, frankly, these are going to be the kind of contributions that I think we'll probably all want to be issuing press releases about. So it's, there will be hopefully the opportunity to spread the good word loudly and widely.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could chime in to answer Councilman Patoka's question.
1 second, Mr. Crandall. Councilwoman Bevins was up next.
Okay.
Councilwoman Bevins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I'd like to say I'm going to wholeheartedly support this. And, you know, we have so many examples of where these foundations have been very successful, whether in education or with the library. So I commend the administration and Councilman Crandall. And Councilman Crandall, I'm going to disagree with you. Today, this may be overshadowed by this another bill, perhaps 1821, but for the future, it will not be, and that's what's important.
Thank you, Councilwoman Bevins. And Councilman Crandall?
Sure. Thanks, Councilwoman Bevins. I appreciate that. Councilman Patoka, just to sort of clue you in on the conversations that the administration and I have had. I came to the realization early on in thinking about this that there are companies and entities that they're located in one part of the county, and they're interested in their geographic footprint. They're not necessarily interested in supporting something 20 miles away. And that was an important aspect of this legislation that, as Mr. Murray mentioned, that the legislation would give a corporate philanthropic partner the ability to restrict the donation to something that they care about, whether it's a program or a facility or building of a park or a lot of the other things that go on in Baltimore County. So that's clearly spelled out in the legislation.
Thank you, Thank you, Councilman Crandall.
Okay, are there any additional questions or comments? Thank you very much, Mr. Murray. Next, we'll move on to, we will come back to Bill 1821. We will move on to page 3, Bill 1921. Colonel Lavac.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, County Council members. How are you?
Great.
This is a sexual assault forensic evidence SAFE grant. There are a couple of acronyms in here, as with anything involving forensics. So as I move along, I'll identify them. A supplemental appropriation in the amount of $218,180 has been made to the Baltimore County Police Department by the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Bureau of Justice Assistance. This request is for the council's approval to accept and appropriate that amount in funding as awarded by the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, OJP, and Bureau of Justice Assistance. Program funding will be utilized to increase the police department's ability to implement an upgraded evidence management program to continually inventory, track, report untested and unsubmitted sexual assault kits, which are considered SAKS, S-A-K-S. The goal of the 3-year program is twofold. One, to create a user-friendly database for the inventory and tracking of SAKS that interfaces with the department's current and future laboratory information management system, otherwise known as LIMS. And 2, to create an online space to publicly report and update SAKS statistics at least every 60 days. Expected results include an improved LIMS system with greater case specification and enhanced chain of custody features for tracking and reporting internally to victims and the public and to the OJP. The project will also provide enhanced capacity to communicate with the Maryland State Police CODIS coordinator on offender profile and data status. Funds will support employment of a contractual part-time case manager solely dedicated to the goals of this project. The case manager will be responsible for creating and continually updating a database of SAKS, existing and new ones, tracking the live process of all kits, and also reporting of all safe sexual assault kits. When the department transitions to a new LIMS, the case manager will be responsible for the integrity of the data transfer, as well as for ensuring the data is searchable and user-friendly. The case manager will coordinate with forensic laboratory management to ensure data is updated and reported on a public website at least every 60 days, and that data is provided for reporting to OJP through GMS every 6 months. This is a 3-year grant, and that would be my testimony, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Colonel Lavac. We certainly appreciate it very much. And I certainly appreciate this SAFE Act grant. I think it's going to make a big difference in terms of catching perpetrators of sexual assault. And I know, let me ask you a question. Has the money we received from the Hackerman Foundation, have we used that up yet?
I don't believe we've used it all yet, no.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. I know that was monies we received to test rape kits.
That's a pretty large grant.
Okay. Great. So I'm glad this is receiving the attention that it deserves. Are there any questions or comments from the members? Thank you very much, Colonel.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we'll move on to page 32. And we'll ask Ms. Deandra Miller. Deandra Walker, I'm sorry. Sorry about that, Ms. Walker.
No problem, sir. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
So I actually have two on the agenda, but which one is page 32? Is it the waste management or the ALTA?
Well, let's start with the waste management, and then we'll move on to ALTA planning and design.
All right.
Just
So-
waste management is the addendum, just FYI.
The addendum to the ALTA planning and design?
No, Mr. Chairman, just the waste management contract, I think the auditor's office sent out an addendum a few hours ago.
Okay, all right. Ms. Walker, you're prepared, correct?
Yep, I believe so, sir.
Go right ahead with the addendum to the
right.
waste management contract.
All right, the administration is requesting approval of a contract with Waste Management for municipal solid waste transfer and disposal arrangements. The contract replaces a significantly amended 25-year contract, which included renewals that was originally executed on February 1st, 2010. The contract commenced January 15, 2021, and will continue for 1 year and will renew automatically for 1 year with the option to extend the term for an additional 180 days. The contract does not specify maximum compensation for the initial 1 year term or for the entire 2 year, 6-month term, including the renewal and extension period. Compensation, however, for this contract may not exceed the amount appropriated in our budget for these services for the entire contract term. And the estimated compensation for this will be $25 million for the entire 2 year, 6-month period, including the renewals and extensions. The estimated revenue associated with this contract is anywhere from 4.5 million to 4.5 to 5 million a year. Our fiscal note details, again, the 25 million total compensation and our expected revenue. And then it goes into the analysis of what the contract actually does in terms of moving waste from Harford County through our transfer stations into disposal. It's important to note that this contract has an MBE requirement of 15% of the contractor's total cost for accepting and transporting municipal waste. And yeah, so with that, do you all have any questions for me?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Walker. Any questions or comments from the members? Okay, thank you, Ms. Walker. I guess we'll move on to page 32, the contract with ALTA Planning and Design.
The administration is requesting approval to utilize the ALTA Planning and Designing contractor to work with Baltimore County staff to create and update our county's bicycle and pedestrian plan. Our plan will, of course, include participation in stakeholder coordination meetings, as well as several community workshops. The total compensation to be paid to the contractor shall not exceed the sum of $200,000 during the entire term of the agreement, including all of the renewals. The initial term of the agreement shall begin when fully executed and go through September 30th, 2021. We will have an option to extend up to an additional 180 days based on the time frame and the conditions. This was the best qualified, best value, most experienced contractor that we selected for this contract in particular.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the members?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go right ahead, Councilman Marks.
thank you very much. I'm speaking in favor of this item. My very first bill before the county council created the Baltimore County Pedestrian Bicycle Advisory Committee. And I think we've made some real strides over the past 10 years. And I'd like to thank this administration in particular for the attention it's given to bicycling issues. Bicycling is good for exercise, mobility, and it is reflective of a population, particularly millennials, that want to do more biking. So I certainly am in favor of this plan and look forward to its implementation.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. We certainly appreciate your leadership as it relates to transportation issues. So, any additional questions or comments? All right, thank you very, very much, Ms. Walker. Now I'll move right along to page 19. Wait a second. Page 19, Bill 25-21, Leonard Howard.
Good afternoon, Chairman Jones and members of the council. This administration is requesting 4 supplemental appropriations of state funds from the Relief Act. It's always a pleasure when we can come to you and request to spend money that does not come directly from the county budget. The grants must be spent down by June 30th, 2021. As a matter of looking back at what we've done, this department has dispersed close to $25 million in COVID-related grants since the beginning of this pandemic, which accounts for almost 1,400 individual grants to date. So we continue this work on behalf of the people and businesses of Baltimore County. The first bill is 2521, State Relief Act Grant, Online Sales and Telework. It's an emergency measure. This is a supplemental appropriation of $68,000 for small businesses up to 20 employees that have been impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and incurred costs to establish or expand online sales and telework. Up to $5,000 may be granted to each business under this program. I'll note that when this funding was approved by the state, the original state budget was around $500,000 for this program. However, we have learned that there will be, this program was actually expanded statewide to $15 million. They have yet to inform each jurisdiction what the ratios are, what the percentages are. But once we do, I'm sure we will come back to the council with news of additional money to put forward to this program, online sales and telework. The second, should I stop with each one or I'll do all 4?
Any questions or comments from the member? Hearing none, go right ahead, Mr. Howard.
Okay, thank you. Bill 2621, State Relief Act Grant, Restaurants, Emergency Measure. This is a supplemental appropriation of almost $3 million for restaurants and food service establishments that have been impacted by the COVID pandemic. Businesses will be eligible for up to $12,000 in funding to defray operating costs. We will prioritize applicants that have not yet received grant funding. We expect the application period will open at the end of April for eligible businesses to apply. Please note that we have awarded close to $15 million in restaurant state grants to date. Any questions on the restaurant grant?
We're just happy that those grants were there, Mr. Howard. It helped a lot of people stay in business. Go right ahead.
Absolutely, we agree. Thank you. Bill 2721, State Relief Act Grant, Hotels, Emergency Measure. This is a supplemental appropriation of just over $1.3 million to provide grants of up to $25,000 to eligible hotels, motels, and B&Bs. We expect to open the applications following the restaurant grants, establishments that we have not yet received, and we expect to prioritize those hotels that have not yet received grant funding. Baltimore County is home to just over 50 hotels, and in our prior round of the hotel grant program, we awarded grants to 34 different accommodation establishments thus far.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Howie. No questions, go right ahead for it.
Okay, and the final one is Bill 2821, State Relief Act Grant Tourism Emergency Measure. This is a supplemental appropriation of $136,000 to promote and advertise the county's tourism small businesses that are hit hard by the pandemic. The funds must be used for a direct marketing campaign that promotes businesses with fewer than 20 employees.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Howie. That money is certainly needed. And I'm happy to know that you guys are turning it over, getting it to people who need it as quickly as we can.
Mr. Chair.
Any additional questions, comments? Go right ahead, Councilman. Go ahead, Councilman Katz.
Thank you very much. Mr. Howie, do you have an idea how much the hotel tax receipts have been reduced during this COVID period?
Councilmember, not off the top of my head. I can research that and get back to you with that answer.
So basically, obviously, we've had a reduction.
Oh, yes, of course.
And
yes.
this aid is replacing the money that we would have gotten from the hotel tax to do the advertisement, et cetera. But you don't I guess you don't have any idea of what was planned in order to accentuate tourism and what's actually happening because of the lack of receipts from this tax. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yes, and I'll add to that. There were two concepts in there. One was the hotel tax and the other was tourism. On the hotel side, that's where the tax receipts have been reduced, and the money that goes to that program really intended for the hotels and other accommodations to use the money as they need to, in order to stay in business. So they're using that money to pay bills, to pay employees. The tourism grant, that $136,000, that does help to replace or at least supplement some of the marketing costs that some of these businesses would have incurred had this funding not been here.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any additional questions, comments? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Howie. Now we'll move on to page 6. Colonel Andre Davis, Bill 2021.
Good afternoon, Council. Yes, I am testifying on the National Sex Assault Kit Initiative Grant. The Police Department is requesting the Council's approval to accept and appropriate the $108,000 from the U.S. Department of Justice Office of Programs, Bureau of Justice Assistance. Here too, I'm going to refer to as BJA grant. The monies encumbered will be used to investigate all unsolved sexual assault cases and sexually motivated homicides over 3 years old. All eligible cases will be entered into the Violent Criminal Apprehension Program database called the VICAP, which is an FBI database, and a case spreadsheet will also be maintained. VICAP and the spreadsheet will be used to analyze and identify violent serial offenders and to conduct the threat assessment of identified offenders. The BJA funding includes salaries, which are 2 police assistants, part-time, 29 hours per week. And as a side note, these PA positions will not be from former Baltimore County employees or retirees. They will come from other jurisdictions, so that we won't have any limitations for their use. The money will also be used for overtime for a sergeant and detective position, for travel, professional services, service contracts, and fringe benefits. And just a small history, over the last 3 years, the county has had 8 open sexually motivated homicides. And in 2020, the county has had 37 open sexual assault cases. In conclusion, I would like to thank the council members in advance for considering the approval of this BJA federal funding. There is no money, no money or county matches incurred by this grant.
So thank you, Colonel Davis. We certainly don't have any issues at all accepting money from the federal government. So, are there any questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go right ahead.
I just wanted to thank Colonel Davis for his good work on this. If we're getting sexual predators off the street, I think that's a great thing for Baltimore County and reducing that threat to both to our residents, men and women of Baltimore County. So thank you, Colonel Davis, for a good job. Well done.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Colonel Davis. We'll move right along to page 9. Lawrence Richardson, Deputy Director, Bill 2121.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the council. Bill 2121 is a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $10,027 to the Children with Special Needs Healthcare Needs Program. The State Department of Health has approved the expansion of utilizing funds to increase county providers to engage families by utilizing family professional partnerships. These additional funds will be used to pay the salary for one public health nurse to develop toolkits for the outreach and collaboration of doctors and families in need. The Children with Special Needs Healthcare Needs Grant provides funding for children with special healthcare needs within Baltimore County Department of Health Bureau of Clinical Services, Maternal Child Health. The goal of this program is to connect families of children with special healthcare needs to resources within the community and enable them to better navigate the healthcare system through advocacy and linkages. In order to better achieve the program's goal, the program is looking to utilize these funds to provide enhanced services by soliciting feedback from providers and clients.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Doesn't look like any questions. Go right along to 2321.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. 2321 is a supplemental appropriation request from the Department of Health and Human Services Immunization Cooperative Agreement. Funds were made available to public health agencies to strengthen the critical planning and COVID-19 vaccination implementation activities. These funds are coming through the Maryland Department of Health in the amount of $1,661,549. The funding is going to be used to fund a health equity director to increase vaccine administration among populations that are disproportionately affected by COVID-19. It will also be used to fund our ongoing vaccination sites and clinics that are located throughout the county.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Move right along to 24-21.
Bill 24-21 is another supplemental appropriation request in the amount of $6,160,500. This is coming from, this is a pass through from the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA. The Department of Health and Human Services will be using this funding to purchase many preventative items and services to support our vaccination efforts. These services include transportation to and from clinics, home health services to provide vaccination to homebound residents, temporary services for non-medical vaccine clinic assistance, and also the purchase of PPE, coolers and freezers for our vaccine and medical supplies and facility support required for storing, handling, and transporting the COVID-19 vaccinations. These will be leased or purchased vehicles and storage facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. There's no question we'll take that 6 million, and we certainly appreciate everything the health department has been doing to battle COVID. Everybody from Dr. Branch on down have been absolutely outstanding. Emergency responders have been absolutely outstanding, and everyone's been doing a fantastic job. Are there any questions or comments before we move on?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Councilman
Yeah.
Cash.
Thank you. I guess good would be the administration rules 1921, 2021, and 2121. Those programs are obviously very much needed. Is this money that we would have expected as a county from the federal government, or is this? I'm sorry. Somebody say?
You want to? No, you want to take that one, Mr. Blades, or Mr. Richardson?
So 2021, that is an appropriation that we do normally receive from Health and Human Services. You'll be referring to our children with special needs. That's just a supplemental appropriation on top of, we already have $52,000 appropriated in that program. This is additional $10,000, which is used for the expansion of that program. So this is basically a routine grant, routine funding that we do receive.
But the other items are COVID related, correct?
The other two items are emergency COVID related funding that we receive from the federal government, passed through the Maryland Department of Health.
Okay, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. While we have it, Mr. Richardson, while we move on to page 36, that's amendment to a contract. Go right ahead.
So the administration is seeking to renew for 1 year a contract agreement to perform non-emergency medical transportation and ambulatory transportation services with TransDev Services. The non-emergency medical program serves approximately 3,200 Medicaid clients, providing an estimate of 175,000 one-way ambulatory transports. These transports are for life-sustaining medical care, including kidney dialysis, substance abuse medication, and counseling. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, and the Department of Health have provided $4.8 million for the funding of these services.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to Mr. Boswick. You want to talk about page 42, the non-competitive bid awards?
We will. I will make those that announcement at the legislative session on April 19th. There are a number of them, and I will list them at that time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Councilman Marks, if you want to talk about the resolution 46-21.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Resolution 4621 requests that the planning board review the policies associated with the minimum width requirement of townhouses or group homes. Currently, the Baltimore County Comprehensive Manual of Development Policies and the zoning regulations require that townhouses for group homes be of a certain width, 20 feet in width, unless approved via the plan unit development process. My understanding is that other jurisdictions allow 16 or 18-foot townhouses. As we look at issues such as affordability and infill development, it seems that this is a public policy question that can be evaluated by the planning board during this time between the conclusion of the comprehensive zoning map process and the start of the next master plan. Again, all we are doing here is seeking a report from the planning board. This is not a legislative matter. It's simply a policy issue that they would look at.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. Certainly appreciate it. Any questions or comments? Yes, Councilwoman Babbitt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilman Marks, do you know if the planning board will be looking at for purchase, for lease, or both?
I think it's both. I don't think there's a distinction. I think it's just the overall architectural characteristics of the townhouses.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead, Councilman.
just a question for Councilman Marks. So the idea is to have the planning department and planning board to assess the viability of that narrow townhouse. For perspective, the narrowest townhouses in Baltimore City are, and these are pretty narrow, 9 feet. So a 16-foot townhouse adds about, if you could imagine, if you've been into the narrowest townhouse in Baltimore City, that would add 5 feet to that. Is the planning department going to look at the viability of what makes economic sense, what makes design sense, or what makes functional sense?
I think they could look at all three of those characteristics. I mean, I think we're looking at kind of best practices across all jurisdictions. We have a lot of people who want smaller units. I mean, there's this whole idea of minimalism now, and just people living in a smaller dwelling. So I think we can have the planning board look at all those type of characteristics.
So is it like a tiny house is what you're?
I don't mind them looking at
Civic Works.
that. Yeah, I don't mind them.
It's done a great job with Civic Works looking at those tiny houses.
I don't mind amending the resolution to do that. Not at all.
I think that might be appropriate, especially since one of our legislative colleagues in the state legislature, Dana Stein, has a level of expertise doing that during his day job at Civic Works, which is, I don't mind saying, it's a nonprofit that does work in the region.
Yeah, Mr. Boswick, could we craft an amendment that expands this a bit?
We certainly could. Yeah, if Mr. Patoka or you wish to give me some of the particulars.
Sure. Mr. Patoka, could you do that?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Moving right along to Bill 22-21, page 9, Councilman Quirk and Marks, Employee Retirement System.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think if it's okay with Councilman Marks, I think our legal secretary, Tom Boswick, was also going to review this as well.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Quirk and Mr. Marks. This is a bill that really kind of got its, started to develop when the Inspector General issued her report in October of last year related to retirees that were being brought back into county jobs for jobs that needed to be filled, but perhaps were not full-time jobs or were seasonal jobs. And in order to fill some of these positions, it was advantageous to bring them back and also allow them to be paid their compensation, but also retain their pension benefits. And But what happened apparently, at least the Inspector General found, was that there was not a lot of structure to the program. And candidly, whatever was happening predated the current administration, and there was not a lot of structure. And at least the IG found that a number of employees were receiving benefits and compensation, but they weren't doing so under any particular or any specific recognized county statute. And so this bill got its genesis after reviewing that report and discussing it with the administration and with council members Quirk and Marks, and trying to craft a solution to that issue. And so they prepared Bill 22-21, which if you go back in time a little bit, the council passed Bill 4717 in 2017, which repealed a certain section of the pension article to not allow double dipping under the circumstances of that statute. But there was an uncodified section that remained that allowed certain employees that were being that were qualifying under that section prior to the act to continue to do so. And again, the prior administration expanded that a bit more than perhaps was intended. And then at the same time, the council passed Bill 50-17, which was really designed to offset the effect of Bill 4717. Bill 50 was enacted to provide a mechanism for having part-time and or seasonal employees the opportunity to take jobs that were either hard to fill or did not pay a lot of money so that they could still maintain their pension benefits. But that bill, that statute that was enacted as a result, was not really utilized very much, partly because a person was required to be retired for 6 months before they could be brought back. And I think the administration found that cumbersome. When they would want to bring someone back, they'd have to wait and wait and wait, and then they could do it. And so what this bill does, after having said all that, what this bill does is it really unequivocally repeals what was repealed in Bill 47-17. It takes away the uncodified language that provided a small exception. And then it also takes away that 6-month period in which the administration would have to wait to bring back a retiree for a seasonal or part-time job. And then during the course of the pendency of the bill, we've been discussing with the administration some other minor changes that just make the program a little more structured. And I think the administration's desire, and I don't want to speak for them, but my understanding is that they'd like to have a 2-year program where retirees can be brought back and they can bring the knowledge that they have to either a newer employee or another employee that has been there that they can learn from and they can train. And then after 2 years, the retiree who was brought back kind of then rides off into the sunset. And this bill, the amendments that we're working on will allow that to happen. And that's pretty much the bill in a nutshell. If there's any questions or if the administration wishes to speak on it. Thank you.
Well, we have a lot of hands. Councilman Quirk and Marks, you still have the floor. If you want to add anything.
Chairman Jones, I'll defer to Councilman Marks, and I might say a few things after Councilman Marks, but something, Councilman Marks first.
Yeah, and Councilman Quirk, thank you for taking the lead on this. I appreciate you pushing this forward. I want to thank the administration as well. I know we worked very closely with them on this bill. I want to bring up Councilwoman Allman's name, Vicky Allman, who put in the original legislation, and she was very concerned about this issue of double dipping. But I think more among people who were higher paid in the administration. That several of us were serving at the council at the time. I think the bill had some unintended consequences, and we're trying to address the issues raised in the Inspector General's report. I mean, the fact is there are people who have specialized knowledge that you want to bring back. Police officers, for example, that have been impacted by this issue. And we should have a mechanism for allowing that. So I just wanted to bring up I want to thank Councilman Quirk. I want to thank Ms. Rogers and the administration, but also I want to mention that the original genesis of this had nothing to do with those kind of lower level appointees. It had to do more with higher level appointees that Councilwoman Allman was looking at.
Thank you, Councilman Marks, Councilman Quirk, and then
Yeah,
Councilwoman Bates.
Thank you, Chairman Jones. And yeah, I also just want to echo Councilman Mark's comments. I think he nailed it. And you know, the county exec's office was great working on this issue, and also, you know, our legal secretary Tom Bostwick and Adam, those guys did great work, really diving into the details as they always do, and working out the nitty gritty kind of policy aspects to it, along with the administration. I mean, let's face it, we have a lot of brain power, unfortunately, retiring from Baltimore County. And they're walking out the door because they're, you know, now close to retirement or retiring, and we really can't afford to really lose all that knowledge base. I mean, just the institutional knowledge base that all these amazing retirees have and possess. And if we can benefit from their knowledge and training and skills, and also not accrue additional pension benefits, it's going to give us a lot of great experience and knowledge without additional burden to the pension system. And so, yeah, I think this is definitely something we need to be clear on. And so, again, I appreciate the exec's office and our own legal team for really working through this complexity for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Bevins, and then you, Ms. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe my name may have been on that bill with Vicky's as a co-sponsor on the original bill. And I have to tell you, that bill was not created for higher paying jobs. That original bill was created because we had several county golf courses come to us and say, we would like to have retired police officers, retired firefighters that play golf down here all the time, and they can't come down and draw a paycheck because they're already on a pension. We had people call and say, I'd love to drive a school bus to stay active, and, you know, but I can't do that because I'm already drawing a pension. And that's why this legislation was created. So folks could come in and work these seasonal, lower paying jobs, which would have no benefits attached to them. And then we also put the 6 months in there because we didn't want anyone having the incentive to retire and draw their pension and then be able to come right back and jump on board. That was the intention of the 6 months in between. But these were for, but I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying I'm against what the bill is doing, but I want to take it back to 17 of why what the original intent of this bill was for people who are retiring from the county that wanted to do rec and parks jobs, work at golf courses, drive school buses, or be crossing guards, and still be able to draw on their pension but not have anything else attached. You know, it wasn't to have folks go out on a 30-year pension, a 6-digit pension, and then come back on a 6-month contract and make $90,000 on or $45,000 or $50,000 on a 6-month pension. I don't think that was the intent of the original bill, but I understand what you're trying to say now. So I just want to be clear on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Bevins. And Ms. Rogers?
Thank you, Chairman and council members. I want to also thank Mr. Bostwick and all the council members who've been working with us on this, these amendments, because the program is to do a semblance of what Councilwoman Bevins just talked about, because we do have individuals who can come back seasonally and assist with certain things, you know, the shortage with school bus drivers, et cetera. But on a larger scale, we are trying to ensure that we have a formal knowledge transfer and succession planning program, which does exactly what we're talking about. When you're talking about the number of people leaving county government, we have significant percentages of staff who are eligible to leave. I mean, tomorrow. And what happens is the runway time to get another person trained and to transfer that knowledge is just so challenging with the workload, with everybody's workloads. So these are common programs in other jurisdictions and in other semblances of government where you have an individual who retires and then for a period of time, they along with a staff person or a new hire to try to transfer all of that institutional knowledge. That's why we requested the removal of the 6 months, because to wait 6 months, we lose that opportunity. Then secondly, to build the program so that senior individuals can come back intermittently to do certain jobs. That's what we want to make sure those pieces were in there. But ultimately, it is the case that the programs like these are not set up to have positions into perpetuity where the person retires, has a pension, and then becomes a part-time employee forever. These programs were not designed for that. Programs like that, where individuals are staying long-term, they have provisions with pension suspension or pension reduction for the amount that they are receiving. We did a full benchmarking on this and found nowhere where an individual can work into perpetuity as a retiree and have a long-term part-time job, the same entity that they retired from. So we thought that this was an equitable way of having at least, you know, that first year to do the knowledge transfer, or if a person's coming in for seasonal support, rec and parks, bus drivers, things like that, we still have that capability. But ultimately, to be on board no longer than 2 years. And we are fully interested in ensuring that we have a working partnership with transparency with the council on who these individuals are and positions they are assisting with knowledge transfer and succession planning.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. I will just say, I remember, first of all, I would ask everybody to please mute your mic if you're not speaking. That'll be the first thing that'll help with our audio. The second thing is, I remember back in 2017 when we passed the legislation, and one of the things that was important to me was to try to eliminate this idea of crisscrossing, right? The crisscross is this. We have certain jobs in Baltimore County that doesn't pay an awful lot. It's a part-time job. But because of this notion of no double dipping, we could not hire our employees who have all of this knowledge and expertise. They had to go to another county, another municipality and work and do those part-time jobs. And then we would hire people from those counties. They would come here and do those part-time jobs. Still cost the county the same amount of money, but the difference was our employees who have retired, they could not drive a school bus for us to make a couple extra bucks. They could drive a school bus for Harford County, Howard County, Anne Arundel County, but they couldn't drive for us, or a police officer who wanted to do background checks when we were trying to do background checks for a lot of employees. They could work somewhere, they could go somewhere else and work, and those retirees could come here, but our own employees couldn't work for us. They had to go somewhere else. So the idea of crisscrossing didn't make an awful lot of sense, but it was all hung up because we were always hung up about this notion of no double dipping. So I was happy to support the bill back in 2017, and I'm happy to see us straighten it out today, put more structure on it. So I'll certainly be supporting it again. Are there any questions or comments before we move on to the last and final bill for today? Hearing none, thank everybody. Now moving right along to page number 1. Mr. Moeller from the Liquor Board, Bill 1821. And first of all, I want to thank everybody for waiting on the line for so long, and certainly apologize that it took this long, but Mr. Moeller, go right ahead.
Thank you, Council Chair Jones, distinguished councilman and council lady. I'm honored to be here today to present to you Bill 1821, the Note Act. For the record, I'm Mike Moeller. I'm Chief Administrator of the Board of Liquor License Commissioners for Baltimore County. The Department of Permits, Approvals, and Inspections, recognizing the gap that exists in determining which of the county's restaurants, businesses, nonprofit organizations, and community groups throughout the county may host or play live musical entertainment as an accessory use, proposes the following changes to the Baltimore County zoning regulations through Bill 18-21. The new Opportunities for Tourism and Entertainment, or the NOTE Act. Under existing zoning laws, hundreds of Baltimore County establishments are not permitted to host live musical entertainment. Local artists are missing out on valuable performance opportunities while county businesses lose potential revenue. The proposed NOTE Act will fix this problem by significantly expanding the number of businesses eligible to apply for a live musical entertainment use permit, and will allow many restaurants, retail, and other businesses in Baltimore County to host live music. To aid in understanding certain aspects of the bill, I draw your attention to Exhibit 1, which I believe Mr. Bostwick forwarded to you earlier today. It includes the current definition of nightclub in our zoning regulations. As you can see, any music that is played in an establishment, live or recorded, is considered a nightclub. In addition, as you know, nightclubs are only permitted in certain limited zones. The majority of our licenses are in the BL zone, which prohibits nightclubs. I can report 53% of our licensees today, as we speak, could be subject to a zoning violation for playing any type of music, regardless if it was disturbing the peace or not. Additionally, there is another section of the current code that states nightclubs are prohibited if they are within 1,000 feet of a DR zone. Exhibit number 2, which was an attachment sent earlier by Mr. Bostwick, is a picture that I think is worth 1,000 words. It identifies our accounts that sit 1,000 feet from a DR zone. You can see how the majority of our establishments are affected by the current regulations. What does the NOTE Act do? The NOTE Act builds on the live musical entertainment use permit created by this council through the passage of Bill 4419. This legislation would expand eligibility for an establishment that is located in a BL, BLR, CB, BM, BR, BMM, BMB, BMYC, or ML zone, and receives more than 50% of its gross revenue prior to 9 p.m. Because of this pre-9 p.m. revenue definition, this is most likely to create opportunities for events like jazz brunches or a Saturday afternoon acoustical guitar performance. This legislation also improves the enforcement model for the live musical entertainment use permit by providing new authorities to 4 departments: permits, approvals, and inspections, health, fire, and police. The bill redefines nightclub to more appropriately represent the businesses that generate the majority of their gross revenues between the hours of 9 p.m. and 2 a.m., correcting the overly broad definition that exists in current law. Nightclubs will not be eligible for the live musical entertainment use permit. This legislation does not apply to seasonal outdoor events in which live musical entertainment is provided, such as Feet on the Street, Music on Main Street, Frederick Road Fridays, or similar events held by a local nonprofit, chambers of commerce, and in which a gathering permit and other applicable permits are obtained, including street festivals in Towson on Fridays. What the NOTE Act doesn't do. The NOTE Act does not add any new permissions for true nightclubs or give authority to businesses that make the majority of their income after 9 p.m. Again, these businesses will not be eligible for the live musical entertainment use permit. It also does not make any changes to the way noise is currently regulated or create new allowances for music to be played louder or later at night. The administration has been receiving feedback on the legislation and intends to introduce the following amendments. Most notably, the administration understands that establishments near residences may disturb local communities through loud outdoor music. An amendment will include language that states any establishment hosting live musical entertainment pursuant to a use permit that abuts to a property being used as a residence will not be allowed to host outdoor performances that use amplified instruments, nor will they be able to have an outdoor DJ or karaoke setup. This is to address the concerns of residents who fear that expanding live music will negatively impact their neighborhood. This legislation will also now allow permits, approvals, and inspections, health, fire, and police to order an establishment playing or performing live musical entertainment to immediately close, cease all operations, and disperse anyone on the premises when it's determined that there is an immediate threat to health, safety, and general welfare of the community. The establishment will be shut down until the next business day. The revocation or suspension of the live musical entertainment permit also remains an enforcement option, as originally enacted under Bill 4419. In consultation with county businesses and constituents, the administration recognizes that there are more local live music events that should be exempt for this permit. The bill will be amended to also exempt arts and entertainment management entities, Main Street Maryland management entities, and Main Street Maryland affiliate management entities, as these organizations are similarly postured to others exempt from this permit. In response to concerns about the timeliness of this process for businesses, the administration plans to increase the maximum amount of days an establishment must produce their revenue records from 5 to 15, and decrease by half the maximum the amount of days for a hearing to be scheduled and a written decision to be published. Let me conclude my remarks by stating the obvious. No one, let me repeat, no one is allowed to disturb the peace of the neighborhood at any time, be it 11 a.m. or 1 a.m. This bill has the teeth to stop that activity immediately. Remember also that violators may be subject to a fine, suspension, or revocation of the music permit, and not just by one agency, but action can also be taken by the liquor board if it's a licensed establishment. This bill has teeth. In conclusion, the NOTE Act will help our small entrepreneurs, both in the restaurant, tavern, coffee houses, and music venues, and will greatly aid our talented local artists hone their craft in public, which is vital to their development. Your passage on this measure will have a lasting effect on our communities. Thank you, and I will gladly try to answer any questions you may have. And note with us is Director Gutwald and Jeff Perlow, Zoning Supervisor, to help with any technical questions that I am unable to answer. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Moeller. We certainly appreciate your presentation. I know I have a few questions, but I'm going to, as always, refer to my colleagues first. Councilwoman Bevins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Moeller, thank you so much for going through that sentence by sentence. So anyone listening or watching has a better understanding of what the bill actually is. Without me getting into, I can get into later about communities and businesses. I have a problem with the amendment because the amendment as currently written is already going to disallow businesses, especially waterfront businesses that are playing music and have been playing music for years, whether legal or illegal, have been playing music outside for years on the waterfront, and they are in residential neighborhoods and they do build up to homes. So if this amendment would pass, that would mean that they would not be eligible for this permit to have outside music. Is that what the amendment says?
Councilwoman Bevins, we have listened to constituents and establishments around the county, and we believe we have addressed those concerns. And this is the option that we have come up with at this time. We are certainly open to working with the council to find a middle ground. We respect the legislative process and know that you're going to gather information as well. And we certainly look forward to working on you and crafting a better bill if there's a better bill. We absolutely are open to that.
Thank you, because we have to find a middle ground, because my concerns have been, you know, some smaller neighborhood bars that never had music that may now have music and really upset a community. However, I have to tell you, I have not had one community association, including the Essex Middle River Council, which you know represents 23 communities. They have not taken a stand one way or the other on this bill. So they're trusting us to work it out. So my problem is small little establishments that never had music will all of a sudden be like, we can have music. Because maybe we're 1,000 feet away, but you're still going to hear it. But what I'm talking about are the folks that have been paying their taxes, paying very large liquor taxes, and the waterfront restaurants that struggle. They struggle all winter long. They have May, June, July, August, and September, and maybe a week or two of October. And I'm telling you, every single one of these in my district, and I'm going to speak for Councilman Crandall in his district as well, because I just talked with one of the owners this morning. These are the good players. These are the guys that you know, aren't having problems. These are the players that work with their communities. These are the people that make sure their parking lots are clean. These aren't problematic establishments. And you would be cutting them to the knees with this, because literally they are, and some of them actually own the homes that are around their establishments, but that's still residential. And they have neighbors that live very close to them, whether it's Wilson Point, Foley's Quarters, Middleborough. I mean, these, you know them, you know all the waterfront communities. This will devastate them. And so where do we find a middle ground between already established establishments that have had music inside in the winter, outside in the summer, that people really flock to put their feet in the sand and just relax and enjoy the sunshine? We don't want to shut those guys down. So where's the middle ground of not shutting them down, but not having all these little places, pop up in the middle of communities.
Yes, ma'am. My only comment back would be, like I say, this is our first swing at this. And if there's a better idea, we certainly look forward to working with you and crafting that better idea.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moeller. I tell you, we have any more comments? I know I have quite a few, but I'm gonna go ahead with Councilman Quirk right now, and I'll reserve my comments about the teeth later. I have problems with the teeth. Go ahead, Councilman Quirk.
Thank you, Chairman Jones. And I do want to recognize and acknowledge the administration for trying in principle to get live music as easy as we can, everywhere we can. And we got a lot of wonderful musicians and a lot of live music and artists out there, and trying to get through this pandemic and make sure that our restaurants and make sure that our musicians and everyone get up and running as soon as we can. Getting obviously through COVID, and be nice to see the economy reopening in the fall, hopefully. Let's hope that the vaccines are successful and we all can get back to normal life soon. So I did want to acknowledge and appreciate the effort. As the council knows, we did undertake a lot of this effort in parts of Catonsville as a pilot. It's worked well. Of course, then we had COVID, and so things kind of stopped, as we all know. But hopefully things will reopen. And obviously, I know the administration is working with Jack Malani and his group, and I know there's probably more issues to be worked out there. But I do hope that we can all come together. And, if there's still details left over, we can always extend this if we need to, make sure we get it right. But I do like what's trying to happen here. I think is great that we all support the motion on what's trying to make happen. So shout out to Mike Moeller and the exec office, and Chuck O'Connor, and everybody's working on this, and hopefully all can hammer out the details and find something that we all can support. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the time.
Sure. Thank you, Councilman Quirk. Next, I'll move right along to Councilman Cat.
My mic on?
Yes, sir.
Good, thank you. First of all, Timonium Fairground, they have a covenant with the Greater Timonium Community Council, which limits the level of music, the noise level, to the state standards, which are 55 decibels during the night and 65 decibels during the day. In fact, you can use an app on your cell phone to measure the level of decibels. Well, they're limited with the number of decibels. Just to give you an example, in the covenants, it says, for instance, that the speakers should be placed in a way that they don't face any houses. They face actually I-83, and it limits the number of musical activities. It mostly during the state fair, where it's very liberal, the understanding. Will this bill in any way negate covenants?
Councilman Koch, no, it will not. As a matter of fact, I'm not sure if you have the bill, but on page 6, line 2, it specifically mentions that permit holders, and it goes on to say, live musical entertainment complies with all laws, regulations, and requirements, including the applicable noise levels set forth in COMAR. So it specifically mentions COMAR in this bill. And if I could jump back to Councilwoman Bevins just for a second, make sure that I'm truly clear that the outdoor music that we talk about being next to a residence is amplified. That does not prohibit acoustical music or a singer who might use a microphone. So I just wanted to clarify that for you, ma'am.
I appreciate that. But I have to tell you, not all the time, but sometimes they have amplified music, even with an acoustic guitar player, that's amplified. I don't know where it's not amplified. You can even go to a very small place with a guy on his guitar, strumming on his guitar, and there's an amplifier there, or you wouldn't be able to hear him through the establishment. So yeah, any which way, it's a bad move for those that are already doing a good job.
Yeah, Mike, Fairground, if under the covenant, they're limited and how many events, how many music events, how many times they can use amplified music. If this bill goes into effect, will this allow Timonium to have more music events? Will it, in essence, not support the part of the use of music so many times a year? Is that going to happen?
Councilman Koch, I have not read that covenant. I will be glad to read that covenant with our administration, and I'll be glad to get back to you and give you an official response. I dare not do that today, having not read that covenant.
Okay, let me also go on. There was legislation that the county council passed dealing with a music school called Stages, and they're on Cockill Road in Greenville. And the legislation, what it does is it limits of course, the decibels. It also specifies their activities must be a certain distance from a residence, and it calls for fairly large crowds, like 300, 400, 500 people to attend these concerts. They will be providing food. This is all contained in legislation that passed, I believe, 2 years ago. Now, which takes precedent, this bill or regarding staging as equal as the bill that, and also want to talk about the Oregon Grill, which the Oregon Grill has I put in legislation there as well, which limit grill to 12 outdoor events with music a year. And the noise levels, the 55, 65 noise levels. Is there any way that this legislation will go against the
Councilman,
the Oregon Grill to have more than 12 a year?
Councilman, thank you. You broke up a little bit, but I think I have the gist. And my answer is pretty similar to the one that I just gave Councilwoman Bevins. Is I honestly have not read those legislations that you have put in or your covenants, and we'll be glad to take a look at it and work with you in crafting a bill that works for everyone.
And there's also a covenant with high tops as well that would need to be reviewed, because one thing these issues were a real problem for years, have been resolved through these covenants that we worked very hard on. And I certainly don't want legislation to pass which will go these, because I tell you, it's going to be a lot of if that happens. So so high tops covenants is. Well, I can,
Yeah, Councilman, yes, we will work, and we've been working closely with Chuck Connor and his team, and we'll be glad to review all of that and get back to you.
yeah, Chris, I'm not in my, oh, I'll be in my,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Councilman Marks.
Yeah, thank you. And Mike, in the administration,
if in case you have doubts.
They're gonna take a look at your concerns, Councilman Cat.
Yeah,
and I'm sure we can fix that.
I would, and if indeed we need any for whatever, then we because I can tell you these covenants are working, and the two bills that were put in and passed by the council are working. The problem's gone, and so thank you very much.
Yeah, Councilman, it is not our intent to undo those, and we will get back to you to confirm that this isn't the case, and we will do our due diligence. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Marks.
Yeah, thank you very much. And Mike, in the administration, I know you're trying to reach a middle ground here, and I appreciate that. Yeah, something that was brought to my attention was if you think of the Honeygo Village Center in Perry Hall, very successful shopping center. We have Lib's Grill, we have Liberatories, terrific place that I try to go to as much as I can. They have townhouses that abut that, they're surrounded. But by all accounts, that shopping center has been a really good neighbor. So we don't want to do anything that precludes that. And we want to do everything we can to continue to revitalize some of these older shopping centers in these commercial districts. The other thing that was brought to my attention, and this is just for the folks listening who are working on tourism, I know this administration has tried to make that much more of a priority. It would be nice if we had some sort of website that identified where performances are going to be, so that if you see a band that you like, you might be able to go there. Right now, it's kind of one of these things where you drive by the restaurant or the business and you see it on the marquee. But just an idea, throwing that out there, and I also just wanted to raise that issue with places like Honeygo Village Center. So thank you.
Okay, so I thank you, Councilman Marks. I'm just going to make a couple of quick statements, and then I'm going to get to the callers who's been waiting for quite some time.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I was raising my hand, but you didn't see me.
Oh, I did not see you. Councilman
So
Crandall,
I'll go, and then you can have your custom.
Go right ahead, Councilman Crandall.
Custom last word. I have some big concerns about this bill, and it
Don't steal my thunder, Crandall.
Well,
I'm just teasing. Go right ahead.
Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but this is fairly sweeping legislation. This changes the nature of many zones, and I represent the 7th district, of course, which has numerous bars, restaurants, taverns, clubs that are located inside of residential communities and abut residential property lines. So I have a real concern about the unintended consequences of this bill, and I think that there may be many. In fact, we passed a bill on events permitting last year that I'm now working with the administration and and our attorneys to fix something that was an oversight in that bill, and we'll bring that up when we're ready. But I don't want to pass a bill, and I certainly don't want my colleagues to support a bill that has so many different unintended consequences and that is so sweeping in terms of changing our code. I understand the spirit of it, but I have some questions about it. And one of them is, how in the world is this going to be enforced? This seems like a layer of bureaucracy that is being put over an industry that is not enforceable. Are we going to get a code enforcement inspector to go out on a Saturday night at 10 a.m. and then make a subjective decision as to whether the place is a nuisance or not. So that's a question I have as to enforcement. I mean, this is, we're talking about involving other agencies that are already stretched to their resource capacity as it is. And I also find it kind of odd that we're looking at the books of these establishments to decide when they're making, when they're more profitable than not. And that's part of the delineation of whether you get a live music permit or not. So, and I realize these aren't necessarily questions, just comments, but I'm having difficulty with this bill and how all encompassing it is. And I really think it is veering into taking away land use authority from the county councils, which is something that I've tried to protect through various legislation that's come before us. So I don't know if Mr. Moeller, if you want to respond to those comments. But I feel that this is, you said it yourself, that you're open to making it a better bill. Well, we have less than 7 days to get a sweeping bill like this to get it right. Councilwoman Bevins already expressed herself about her reservations about the proposed amendment. I'm not sure that this bill is ready for prime time. So I do also, I want to thank the constituents that have contacted our office either through phone or sent emails. I know a few of them are I don't know if they're going to speak or not. I know that I saw a couple of them on the participant list. So I just want to let them know that I certainly have read their correspondence and appreciate them reaching out to them. So with that, Chairman Jones, I'll turn it back over to you unless Mike wants to respond to.
No, I would love to respond, Councilman Crandall. First of all, we're really not charting new territory, and I'll be honest with you, we're just not. And the point I'm making is currently right now, as I made mention in our presentation, 53% of our establishments are in BL zone, which today all 53% could be subject to a zoning violation, and they're not disturbing the peace. It's indoor elevator music. So we're really not expanding or charting new territory. Secondly, as I said at the end of my presentation, no one is allowed to disturb the peace. No one, whether it's 11 or 1 a.m. And the system that we have in Baltimore County is, yes, the police are and will maintain the first line of defense. And it is complaint driven. And the last thing that I really would want to emphasize is, Councilman, the other night, while really thinking through a lot of aspects of this bill, is I literally went around the county and tried to identify the establishments that I know that did outside music. Very rarely do you find inside music being complained about. Very rare, very rarely. And as I went around the county, sir, I can tell you it was less than 5% and probably closer to 2% that actually did outdoor music. And I'll finish with this, sir, is that by giving out a permit, we put the onus on the establishment. You've got to follow the rules, or you run the risk of having that permit being revoked, which eliminates future activities for a period of time. So that's why I like to say there's great teeth in this. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to just pick up on the last thing you said, Mr. Moeller. First of all, I want to thank the administration for bringing forth this bill. I know that where it came from, and I know that the intentions are pure, and we're trying to bring some order to a situation where, to be quite frank, you know, we had all of these establishments throughout the county playing music, not thinking anything was wrong, And lo and behold, we had these regulations that were antiquated that said they weren't allowed to play music. So we fixed it in Catonsville. And as I understood it, we started out saying we're going to make a bill that gives everyone the right to play the music, live music. They will apply for a permit. It won't cost them anything. And in the event that they are abusive of this right or privilege, we can pull the permit. And that is great. And I'm with that 100%. But like so many times, we have this mission creep. Somebody whispers in this ear, I'll fix that. Somebody whispers in this ear, I'll fix that. So the next thing you know, we have teeth in this bill. And that's what bothers me. Number one, to Councilman Crandall's point. If an establishment is playing music, live music, and it's pretty loud, for the sake of argument, and let's say they've been doing this forever, but today they're going to do it, they have their permit, and now all of a sudden we're going to leave it up to someone from the police department, fire department, the health department, code enforcement, to not just say, don't disturb the peace, turn your music down. Oh no, these people will be able to say, shut this operation down. I don't care if you just ordered your food. I don't care what, everybody out. And now how do we go back and fix that for the business owner who just lost a night of income because the music was too loud? If we want to not disturb the peace, then so be it. Tell them to turn the music off. If they abuse the privilege, so be it. Take the permit. But I don't like the idea of giving the right to people that's going to say, shut your business down. And right now, we have fire code. If it's too crowded, we can put people out to adjust the crowd size. But going towards making somebody cease and desist of all of their operations because the music is too loud, I think we've sort of making the wrong turn. The other issue I have really is, you know, we have these businesses out there now doing this thing, having live music, and we want to give them a permit. And if they are abusive, we take the permit back and tell them they can't do it. That's where I am. But when we start going too far and start to talk about, you know, who can, who can't, it's a possibility that we're going to take somebody who's been doing something for years, and it's not their fault we didn't have rules on it, but the community was okay with it. And now all of a sudden they may not meet the criteria to get a permit, and then we're telling them they can't do it. And they've been doing it for years and nobody's been complaining. So me personally, I saw where we started out at a good place, but now we've all of a sudden added teeth to this animal. And now all of a sudden, you know, we stand the risk of possibly hurting some businesses. Because if I take your permit and I give it back in 6 weeks, that's okay. But if I take a night's income from you, maybe the best night of the summer, we can't put that back. We can't put that genie back in the bottle. Councilwoman Bevins, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a question, I guess, for Mr. Moeller. So I was under this understanding when I read this piece of legislation that, let's say there was a complaint made, say a resident called and said the music's too loud, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, you know, they're disturbing the peace. The police go out. I was under the impression that the police would not shut the establishment down. They would just order the music off, and they would not shut the kitchen down. They would not ask people to leave. They wouldn't interrupt their meal, that they would just go in and say, hey, you're disturbing the peace, you know, pull the plug and maintain your regular business hours and, you know, that. So is that correct, Mr. Moeller, or no?
That in practice is, yes, ma'am, is the way it happens. Police do go out, and I don't want to give you a percentage, but it's very high, well over 95%, if not more, that the activity is shut at the establishment, not shut, I'm sorry, but there's conflict resolution. There's a complaint made. Yes, I drove up. Your establishment's way too loud. You need to tone it down. And that is the way the vast majority are handled. If it becomes egregious or repetitive, yes, they do refer, and we do get all the police reports, and the liquor board has taken action. I would like to comment just for answer a bit to the chair, Councilman Jones, is that we would like the right to retain to shut down an establishment, but only for egregious activities that perhaps the music was the contributing factor in other activity that would cause them to be shut down. A massive fight, those types of gunshots, etc. But it's not all or nothing. There is no intent whatsoever to shut down a business absent of something egregious. And if I could just conclude with the remark that we have a great relationship with our business partners, with what the county executive has done and the council has approved over the last year with the pandemic, and are bending over backwards to help every single establishment be successful. I mean, these are phenomenal. And I will throw this out. I'm sorry to be a bit long-winded. We literally went through the entire county. And because of the relief that you all gave establishments, we've had one establishment shut down due to COVID. That's it, one. And the national average is 17%. So we have great partners, and we have confidence that they want to follow the rules and will follow the rules. And we have the support of the organization. Yes, penalize the ones that can't or won't follow the rules. Thank you.
I guess the issue, Mr. Moeller, for me is right now today, we can shut down an establishment if there's a large fight or some other type of disturbance. I just worry about giving authorities to shut down an establishment when we use the word egregious. We can use all kinds of words, but these words are going to be interpreted by some person that evening. And I'm afraid that if we go further than where we are now, we could have some unintended consequences. And on this note, I'm going to go ahead with Councilman Katz, and then you, Councilman Coe. Unmute your mic, Councilman.
I'm sorry, what?
No, go right ahead.
Oh, I was disturbed to hear about your example of the police driving up to a particular restaurant and saying it's too loud, shut it down. What basis is the police using to say it's too loud? Because I understand the county does not have the equipment to measure the level of decibels that are occurring on that particular property or at that particular establishment. I mean, the state law is 55 and 65. So, and I know you can get an app on a cell phone that will measure, but I don't think we have equipment to measure noise. And I know the state does not have equipment, and the state does not enforce the noise regulations.
Councilman Koch, if I could just briefly answer that, and if I was misinterpreted, I do apologize. I've been doing this for over 12 years. I can't think of one incident where a loud noise, where the establishment is not shut down. They may ask the managers or owner to tone the music down, but they do not shut down an establishment. So I just want to be clear on that.
Yeah, my question really is, how does the police officer know that who doesn't have the equipment to measure the level of decibels?
I would feel better having the police answer that. I do not wish to answer that for them.
Yeah, I think that it would be good because it's my understanding we don't have the equipment to
So,
measure the level of noise.
okay, Councilman Catch, let me just add one thing and then I'll go to Councilman Coe. The bill states, the bill includes new authorization for the PAI director, the chief of police, the fire chief, the health officer, or their designee to order a venue playing live music entertainment to immediately close, cease operation, and disperse anyone on the premises when it is determined that there is an immediate threat to the health, safety, and general welfare of the patrons of the establishment or the general public. So it doesn't have to be too loud. Councilman Patoka.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to build on a comment that Mr. Moeller said and Councilman Marks said, if we can get beyond the permit aspect of it. But looking at this comprehensively, Mr. Moeller said we have a good relationship with their businesses. And Councilman Marks said, well, I'd like to know who's playing at what venue. And so if we do get beyond this actual permit aspect of it, I wonder if we can back off and look at it comprehensively from a tourism perspective. So for example, Austin, Texas is known as the live music capital of the world. And the reason they do that is, the reason they're known as that is because they attract musicians nationally and internationally because there are so many venues in which they can perform, get jobs, get gigs. Secondarily, Austin, Texas uses its resources, like it has a municipal a radio station that's funded by the municipality that allows local musicians airtime. So they actually use it as a tourism element to bring musicians to the county. They've decided what they want to be. And I know that we're talking about the specific permit appropriateness in the aspect for this aspect of our council session. But I do want to say that I believe that down the road, there could be a significant tourism element to it that benefits Baltimore County.
Mr. Chair, could I answer you for 1 second? And that is that there is no difference really in what we have currently. If the fire department, as you well know, goes in and finds an imminent fire potential with overcrowding, they can shut it today. If the police go to an establishment that has had gunshots and there's fights erupting, they can shut the business today. If health goes in for social distancing and they believe in their eyes, it's an imminent threat because of the pandemic and coronavirus, they can shut them today. So there's really no difference. And what I would just add, in the calendar year 2020, 16 cases of noise disturbance came in front of the liquor board. 5 establishments were fined. That's 16 out of 500. That's not a large percentage, sir. And again, the majority of establishments that we deal with want to do the right thing. Thank you.
I agree. Councilwoman Bevan, then Councilman Marks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilman Toka, I'm glad that you mentioned the tourism aspect of this, because I'm going to go back to the waterfront again. I know that this discussion is just not about waterfront establishments, but regarding tourism, 40% of our boats that come to our local marinas in both the 6th and the 7th district come from out of state, mainly Pennsylvania. And people who purchase slips for the summer, sometimes what determines where they are could be fastest access to the bay. It could be, I don't want to be at a restaurant where they have music because, that's not what I want to hear at night. But it could also be, yes, I want to be at one of the local restaurants because I like their food, and we can sit out on our boat and we can drink our own alcohol and eat our own food and listen to the entertainment. And some people enjoy that as well. So for people that are coming to through the Chesapeake Bay and up into whether it's the Middle River or Back River, wherever they may be traveling on their boats, I mean, there's a reason why they're coming there and they're spending money. And again, if you take those restaurants, bars out of the mix because, they're in a residential neighborhood, we're going to have a real problem there. And I guess that those boats would just go to regular boatyard marinas where there aren't these establishments. But I very much understand, especially what Councilman Crandall was saying about neighborhood establishments. We have so many little establishments that, geez, we just do not want to see little bands end up out on the deck or out in their grassy area or inside with their door open all night for the whole neighborhood to hear if they're disturbing the peace. No, again, I agree with that. No one should be disturbing the peace. But when you take these establishments that have been around for a very long time, and not to some of them haven't had trouble from time to time, that's going to happen. The longer you're a business and the bigger your business are, eventually there's going to be an occurrence of some sort at your establishment. And the liquor board and the police are very good at resolving those issues. I know that Mr. Moeller sometimes calls them come to Jesus meetings when he has to meet with owners of some establishments to say, hey, things just aren't, you're not doing things the way you should be. So I get I get all that, but going back to Mr. Batoka again, I think that there does have to be a broader look at how this could affect tourism and how people all the way on the Eastern Shore. I know the Eastern Shore sounds like a long way to everybody here, but if you're me or Councilman Crandall or Mr. Bostwick, who had a boat at one time, where I lived in Oliver Beach, the Eastern Shore was 10 minutes from me on my jet ski. The Eastern Shore is not far. So people get on websites, whether it's the Riverwatch, Carson's Creek, Sioux Island Inn, Tiki Lee's, Crazy Tuna, all those waterfront bars, they look for that entertainment and they come across the bay and they spend money in those establishments. So the Eastern Shore is not far by boat, folks. It's right across the bay. But I think tourism, we definitely have to take that into consideration as well with this. And how
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Councilman Bevins. Councilman Marks.
Thank you. I'll be very brief because I know we want to get to the speakers. A question for Mr. Bostwick. Councilman Katz raised the issue of covenants. My understanding is a covenant is an agreement between two private entities, and it's enforced by the circuit court. That's a state, the unit of the state government, correct, Tom?
Well, as you indicate, if this bill were to pass, it would set up a certain standards and limitations or restrictions and require a permit. If an organization and a business entity enter into a covenant agreement, that is a private agreement between them. Obviously, the provisions of the agreement can't be illegal, but they certainly can be more restrictive than what the law says. They can't be less restrictive. The law can't say one thing and the covenant say, well, you can do a lot more than that. No, but you can certainly make them more restrictive and not be in conflict with the law. But it is up to the parties to enforce those provisions, and that would be the circuit court, correct?
Which is a state, correct?
That is also correct, sir.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Why don't we move on now to give some of the speakers an opportunity to speak. They've been waiting a long time. Thank you so much for your patience. Miss Nancy Hafford.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you so much, Chairman Jones and council members for allowing me to speak. Nancy Hafford, the director of the Towson Chamber of Commerce. And I think Mr. Catch is in the background there. Okay. I also serve as a chairwoman of the Baltimore County Chambers and Business Groups, and I sit on the tour. I can't tell you all, I'm sure as you know, how hard this last year has been for all of our restaurants. And they're not just brick and mortars, they're human beings. They're families that have invested a lot. They care about their patrons and their employees. And a big part of some of the restaurants are their musicians and DJs. And so any way that you can help them in that way would be greatly appreciated. I can guarantee you we changed the face of Towson when back about 15, 16 years ago, the county executive, Jim Smith, allowed us to do concerts in Towson. We became a place where people wanted to come. Music gives people a sense of place, as art gives people a sense of place. The Record Theater has been around for close to 50 years, and they have music there. And they started their first concert after COVID about a month ago. Social distance, people sitting down, and the musician who hadn't played in a year, Kelly Bell, who was absolutely fabulous. It just gave people hope for the future. Music gives people hope. This past weekend, we started Seats on the Street with all the restaurants, about 7 restaurants, bringing tables outside and music. So I'm asking you to allow businesses to be able to do that. People came out in droves, out in the fresh air and sunshine. I agree with Councilwoman Bevins. It's very, very important that we have to protect the businesses that have had music outside. I'm asking you all to find a middle ground to make this work out, where we can allow more businesses to have music. And also, sitting on the Tourism Council, it's vital that we have an up-to-date website where we can promote these businesses, where people realize that Baltimore County is the place to go when you want to find good food, good music, and it will promote our local businesses. So I thank you all for your passion. I can feel it. And I'm so glad that you're looking to make sure that there's no bad, unintended consequences from this bill. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hafford. We thank you for your testimony as well as your committed, dedicated service to Baltimore County. And on that note, I will call up our next speaker who's also dedicated and committed and put in many hours of service, Ms. Kelly Carter.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and the Baltimore County Council. My name is Kelly Carter. I own a restaurant in Randallstown, Maryland called The Grind and Wine. And we currently pipe music, which is through Pandora. Our guests have requested that we do live jazz brunches, bring in live entertainment. The music level would not be so loud that you could not hear your guest sitting across from you. As Nancy Hafford stated, this has been a tough year to be in business as a restaurant owner. And the grants have bailed us out. They have allowed us to restructure our business and also restructure our thoughts on how we entertain. I have no interest in having music so loud or being identified as a nightclub or lounge. I do not wish to disturb the peace of the community. I want to do the right thing. A lot of my customers want to stay local. They do not want to travel to Baltimore City for live entertainment. And again, we are in a shopping center strip right off of Liberty Road, which is considered Route 26. We do have surrounding neighborhoods, but the sound, I know we spoke earlier about the certain number of decibels. Again, the music would not be so loud that you could not hear the person across from you speak. So I am in support of the NOTE Act, and I love to see everyone's passion. Julian is our councilman. He's been to my restaurant. Again, I have no desire, need, or want to function as a nightclub or lounge or have loud music. Music is universal. And if you look back through the span of time, human beings connect to music. Whether it's a funeral or graduation or wedding, romantic dinners, mothers rocking children, music is soothing. And I am in support of the NOTE Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carter, and thank you for your service to the community as well, and appreciate your testimony. Next, you do a wonderful job too. Grind and Wine is an excellent place to eat. So next, moving right along to Jack Milan, another establishment that's been in the community for many years.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council. First and foremost, I want to thank the administration. I think that, this is an important bill, and I'm not surprised that we're going to have some controversy trying to figure it out. I would say that right now in the restaurant business, there are a lot of folks who are surviving, but that's about all they're doing. So this is another tool that could help us, and we really appreciate the timing of trying to get this done at this time. We also understand the safeguards that need to be in place. Mr. Moeller and I deal a lot together on issues. I can tell you that the liquor board for us is a body that does keep our membership honest, because if not, they'll issue a show cause, have a hearing, and I would say for the 90% of the time, they get what they deserve, the folks who have done the things wrong. You will not find our association defending folks who continually do the wrong thing, because quite honestly, that kind of stains the industry, and we're more interested in the folks that do the right thing, or at least attempt to do the right thing all the time. Couple concerns we have, and I'll thank the administration, because we have been conversing with them, with Chuck and Joel a lot. We're getting there on some of our issues. They've seen some things, and I think at this point, the biggest issues we have are the emergency section on closing the operations. I would note, Mr. Mister, our legal counsel will cover that later on, but I would let you know that in the bill that we did, the pilot bill in 2019, that section wasn't in there. And I'm just very concerned as to what's changed in the last year and a half that requires that to be in there, because I think with designees and a lot of folks that have that power, if they close the place and it turns out that the music was a bit too loud, we can't sue county government for that money, because that would be a legal action. So we would be out that money. So I would ask that you listen carefully to what Mr. Mister has to say on that. The ban on the outdoor puts our association in a really tough spot, because we have members, I think Councilwoman Bevins was talking about, we have members that have had music outside forever. And I'm not going to tell you they've never had complaints, but with the exception of one establishment that really put a bad taste in people's mouths on the east side, the other folks are more interested in solving it with the community. We need to coexist. If we're going to take money out of the community, it's important that we put back money and we cooperate with them and and we try to support them in their endeavors. So I would love to have a way that we could do that in a way that if you're a bad actor, I would say to Mr. Mueller, if it's someone with a liquor license, just give them a show cause, fine them. If they do it continually, take it away from them. You know, if you can't do it right, you shouldn't have it. Just following up on Delegate Koch's, the covenants, there is some language I think we've all become very familiar with through the pandemic, and that's you can be more restrictive locally, but not less restrictive when we're talking about emergency orders. And I know in our industry, and I represent licensees around the state, whenever the state would come down with a new order, we always held our breath to see which locals went more restrictive. So my guess is
Mr.
that,
if you could wrap up your comments, you're over 3 minutes.
okay, my thing would be if the amped music is made illegal, I don't think a covenant can override a law. So that would not be possible. The other thing was, you know, Mike is honestly said in practice they wouldn't do that. But again, if they already have that authority, why is this new language being put in the bill and it says places that have musical entertainment? It's almost like it's targeted to them. So I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jack. Next, we'll move on to Ms. Lori Geis.
Hi, good evening, Chairman Jones and members of the council.
Good
My
evening.
name, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Lori Geis, and I am a longtime Towson resident and president of the Towson Communities Alliance. It's a nonprofit organization representing over 30 Towson neighborhoods and neighborhood community associations. As we all know, the pandemic has affected our lives, our communities, and many of our local businesses, especially those in hospitality and the food industry. Unfortunately, some of those have even closed. This bill allows our local businesses and entertainers to hopefully sustain and grow their business, as well as adding value through entertainment for us and our communities. The only concern our communities have expressed, and I myself expressed to Councilman Marks, is the potential noise generated by the outside amplified music, and the impact that that would have on nearby communities. We support this bill with the understanding that it reflects that if there are noise concerns, that they are addressed. However, whether it's with the police coming and telling them to take the music down, or we certainly don't want to close the business down. That's not what we're looking for, but we do want something in place where if it's disturbing neighbors, that there can be a modification. We are excited about the prospect of adding more value and fun to our dining experiences, and look forward to helping and supporting our local establishments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Geis. We appreciate your comments. Thoughtful comments. Next, I'll move on to Mike Rocco.
Chairman Jones,
Yes.
he had to step out of he had to leave the WebEx, so we're going to skip over him.
Okay. Kirby Spencer.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Chairman Jones and our distinguished council. I appreciate this opportunity to speak. My name's Kirby Spencer. I'm a businesswoman in Catonsville. I am a founding member and past vice president of Baltimore County Art Guild. I am the former commissioner on the Commission of Arts and Sciences for Baltimore County and a community activist. I'm here on behalf of our Baltimore County artists who are an integral part of the vibrancy of our community, preserving and honoring local culture and creativity, all while helping and boost local and expanding regional economy, as Councilman Patoka had mentioned earlier. However, in the last year, their ability to share their craft has been severely obstructed. The closing of concert venues, restaurants, celebrations, fundraisers, and other opportunities to play live music have resulted in significant losses for our entertainers and our community at large. When the county council expanded live music opportunities in Catonsville and Arbutus, it aided in realizing the full potentials of this Baltimore County arts and entertainment community to help for years to come. I mean, now is the time to build on that success. I hear the concerns, and I think we're all very pragmatic in expanding and figuring out that middle ground that's going to help all. But this bill will expand opportunities for the artists, bring life back to our local businesses and our communities that have suffered greatly throughout all of Baltimore County. So while this will help preserve culture, heritage, creativity, and economic sustainability for our artist community, a vital part of our constituents. I truly urge your support on the NOTE Act, Bill 1821, and appreciate the administration for its support. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. Next, we'll hear from Francis Borgerding.
Mike, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. My name is Francis Borgerding Jr. I'm an attorney. I represent several residents who live on Miller's Island, adjacent to a bar called the Dock of the Bay. My clients have been in a 16-year running court battle with the Dock of the Bay to try to prevent music to emanate from that property, which has been disturbing to them. The case has gone up to the Court of Special Appeals at least three times, and we just submitted briefs in Annapolis for our third trip up to the Court of Special Appeals. The Dock of the Bay has consistently lost in court and been unable to emanate live music from the establishment. If this bill would go through as written, it would allow them a victory, and after 16 years of hard-fought litigation. Our remedy is to propose a setback to residential areas. My client's property is adjacent to the Dock of the Bay, and it is residentially zoned and used, so therefore any setback would knock out the Dock of the Bay's use of the property or use of music. Basically, if when this bill was proposed by the administration, the Dock of the Bay created a Facebook post wherein they bragged that basically they just got a personal note from the county executive, and in addition, he was in favor of the bill, and this was the answer to all their prayers. So I ask you to please, my clients have just met with Johnny O to discuss putting a step back requirement in the bill, and I would ask you to consider a setback requirement to protect my client and other community members. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boring. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Charles Walensky.
Hello, my name is Charlie Walensky. I am here to speak out against the passing of this bill as written. We need setbacks from residences. We also need time limits on outdoor music. I live next door to the Dock of the Bay with my family. My neighbors and I have been in a legal battle for over 16 years. The current zoning requires a business to have BM zoning and 1,000-foot setback from a residence to have live music. This was done for a reason. This bill would remove that requirement and allow any business to have live music no matter how close they are to a residence. This bill makes no distinction between indoor and outdoor music. The time limit in this bill as written is 11 p.m. This means I could have a band playing outdoors next to my home at 11 o'clock at night. This is why we would need time limits. Some of the bars in my community are on very small 50 by 150 foot lots. This will put live outdoor bands less than 50 feet from someone's homes. This bill is severely lacking when it comes to enforcement of rules. The noise regulation deferred to COMAR, 65 decibels during the day and 55 decibels at night. The agencies in charge of enforcing these rules, the fire department, health department, and the police department, are severely overworked. Health department, of course, during COVID, and the police department on a regular basis. None of these departments have a decibel meter, which some of you in the council have addressed already. How could they determine if somebody was breaking the law if they don't even have the equipment they need to decide that? The biggest problem with this bill is that it sets everyone up for failure. It is impossible to have live outdoor music and not exceed 65 decibels at the property line. A normal conversation that we are having right now is 65 decibels. You can look that up on any website that deals with noise. Even if the bar violates the rule, there is no clear-cut process that would remove their ability to play music. The burden is placed on the community to present a preponderance of evidence. It is almost impossible to foresee all the unintended consequences that could come from a bill like this. Before you vote yes on this bill, please ask yourself, would you like to live next to a bar that was allowed to have live outdoor music until 11 o'clock at night? Thank you very much for your time. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Walensky. We certainly appreciate your comments. Next, Mr. Brad Matheny.
Thank you very much, council members. I would like to address something that Councilman Cran touched on about this bill being almost a blanket bill for all of Baltimore County. But by enacting this bill, in our case, on Miller's Island, you're essentially could be placing live music basically right outside of the bedroom windows of numerous residences. I mean, we are honestly that close. There is another bar next to the dock of the bay that has live entertainment due to their zoning. They were zone BM. But from my deck outside of my bedroom, there's been many times where I've taken a sound meter and recorded 75 and 80 decibels, and that's at my bedroom door, not at their property line. And this has been going on for many years. I don't see in this bill how it addresses how, this is going to be enforced. Are the police going to be able to, to enforce the decibel levels? And, how are they going, to address it? I'm really unclear on the fire department aspect and the Board of Health. What we are looking for is we definitely need setbacks. We are literally that close to this business. One house's deck is actually 60 feet away from this business's patio. We've been fighting this for many years, and this bill as passed would basically upend our litigation that we've spent thousands of dollars for. There also would have to be a determination for the time limits and frequency of the music that's played. And understand in our particular case, we would have two bars next door to each other with live music that have residential properties on all the way around them. And just the noise that would create, would be well over the COMAR regulations. I honestly think that these are the things that need to be addressed, for this bill to even move forward. That if they can't be addressed, it shouldn't move forward at all until they can. I understand the need for the music and the welfare of the businesses, but in our case, it is at our expense. And we've had to sacrifice our rights to peace and tranquility so these businesses, can be profitable. And that's why we have fought so hard over all these years. And I want to thank you for, listening to our testimony on this issue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matheny, for your thoughtful testimony. Appreciate you very much. Next, we'll move on to John McAvoy.
Yes, thank you, Council Member. And thank you, Councilor Member Jones, as well as all the other council members. Thank you to Mr. Polinsky and Mr. Matheny as well, our neighbors. My name is John McAvoy. I'm the general manager of Dock of the Bay. I have not had the pleasure of meeting either of my neighbors yet. Unfortunately, I've only been here for about 4.5 months after taking over my father-in-law's restaurant. His name is Ken Boone. He has been in a legal battle for the last 6 years that he has owned this property. There was a previous owner that unfortunately did run this as a nightclub. I can tell you that my wife, that's 26 weeks pregnant, wants nothing to do with a nightclub. She doesn't want us having music out, and she doesn't want me out late. She wants me at home and running this business during the day, closing up when we need to. I do apologize for any of the inconvenience that you have had in the past with our restaurant. I hope that you have listened or you've heard over the past few months that each time when I do not have any more outdoor seating, that I purposely on my own go outside and make sure that there is no more of our Pandora music playing through our outdoor speakers. I hope that's something that you've heard, because it's something I've been very cognizant of since I've been here. I understand that our neighborhood is everything to our business. But at the same time, I also have other customers that come in on their boats. We had people that came in on their boats this weekend from Pennsylvania, like Ms. Bevins mentioned earlier. There is a lot of tourism from a boat traffic standpoint that comes from not only outside of Baltimore County, but outside of our state. That is a benefit not only to our restaurant, but to other restaurants on this water. This is an opportunity for our restaurant to be able to have live music and work not only with our neighbors and our neighborhood associations, but also with Rowboat Willie's next door, who is allowed to have live music. I'm sitting here 20 feet away from their stage. I can't have live music, but they can. Apparently, it's okay to the neighbors that they can have it, but not us. I'm looking forward to working with the neighbors to make this right for everyone. And if it comes down to it that Rowboat can only have it on one day and we have it one day, that's fine with me. But let's make an agreement that works for everyone, not just for the people that think it's specific to them. It's very unheartening to hear the neighborhood support against us. Again, I'd be happy to meet with them specifically and hear their complaints and work with them to the best of our abilities to make sure that everyone is getting their rightful share of this. I do appreciate your time today, and I hope everything works out for everyone's best interests.
Thank you, sir, very much, Mr. McAvoy. I have a comment from Councilwoman Bevins, so don't go anywhere. Hang on the line.
Thank you very much.
I do certainly hope you guys can work it out, because we want good neighbors to work things out, whether it's a business, residents, whoever. We want you to work it out and hate to see it end up in court. Councilwoman Bevins.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to make a comment. So all the council members have a little bit of history, and I'm sure everybody involved will appreciate this that's listening. And I only know this because I worked for the Smith administration when I used to get the calls as constituent services for Jim Smith every Monday morning from Dock of the Bay. I think it's important for everyone to know first, this is not the owner. That was the previous owner who caused all the issues with the music 15 years ago. I think that's very important that everyone knows that. He was a very bad player when the county pushed him to his limits, and he just rented a, what do you call it? What is that, Todd Graham?
A barge.
A barge. He rented a barge and put his bands out on a barge and said, now you can't get me. I'm out on the county. I'm for DNR. DNR has no jurisdiction over music on the water. So that's the kind of guy, I won't mention his name, but that's the kind of guy that owned this restaurant. And he was always pushing the limits. And you know, that's why the neighbors, they were just sick of it. And it wasn't music. It was people urinating in the parking lot, making a lot of noise at closing time, revving up the gravel on the parking lot when they were leaving, couples having fights. It was a lot. I believe I probably had spoken to the gentleman that lives next to Dock of the Bay several times, him and his wife, if he's the county teacher. So I just think it's important that you all know that that guy has been gone for a long time, in all fairness. And, you know, not that maybe that makes any difference in what we're talking about, but I don't want you to think it's the current owner or the owner before that. It was the owner before that had it for many years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Bevins. Next, we'll move on to Mr. Matthew Capriella.
It's Chapella, but I don't see Mr. Chapella on our attendee list. I'm not sure if he called in by phone or if he still intends to testify. I did reach out to him via email a few minutes ago to see if I could get a response. So if you want to move on to our last speaker, Mr. Chair, and maybe we can go back to Mr. Charpella and see if he reaches back out to me in the meantime.
Okay, we can do that. And Jessica, I have two more speakers. I have David Mister and Antone Simmons.
Yes, you're correct. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Yes, let me find Mr. Mister on our list here. Are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Chairman Jones, council members, my name's David Mister. For those of you who don't know me, I have been the attorney for and represent Baltimore County Licensed Beverage Association, with which I think you're familiar, since 1985, when I inherited them as a client from my old law partner, Dutch Rubersberger. In those years, I have assisted them by drafting, reviewing, commenting, and testifying on virtually every piece of alcoholic beverages legislation applicable to Baltimore County. It's given me an opportunity to work with our many members, which we have a lot of restaurants and taverns that are part of that, many of which would like to present live musical entertainment. And we think that basically this is a good bill. It also gives us an opportunity. We have consistently worked with each of the county administrations and with the liquor boards through the years to try and craft laws that are good for both the industry as well as for government to enforce appropriate laws and rules and regulations. My focus today, and it's almost like the chairman and Councilwoman Bevins were reading my notes, is on the enforcement and review process that's in the bill as drafted. And I have a few comments about that and concerns. The first is, and probably the most paramount, is the emergency shutdown provisions contained in the bill. This bill is supposed to regulate live musical entertainment. It seems to me that there's no good purpose to allow whether it be the police department, the fire department, the health department, or anybody else, to come in and completely shut down a business such as a restaurant or tavern, so they couldn't serve food or drink that's unrelated to the musical entertainment because the music on that particular occasion had been what someone thought subjectively was too loud. And that, of course, is a question, who's making the determination? The interesting thing is this bill gives the director and those other agencies the authority to shut them down without any due process or adversarial hearing. It's something they couldn't do to the business after a full due process hearing, because the director only has the authority to suspend or revoke the musical entertainment license. He would have no authority over the rest of the business. So it seems to me both illogical and unfair to give him that kind of overriding authority without a due process adversarial hearing. We think that a due process adversarial hearing is very important to grant fairness. The way the bill's drafted, I guess it's implied that there's going to be a hearing before any action can be taken with regard to the license, but it doesn't specifically say that. I think it should say that. I think it should say that there has to be a hearing conducted by the director, or the director's designee, a due process adversarial hearing at which the license holder could also present evidence. If it's an ex parte hearing, it's not going to be fair and it won't be due process. I also believe that there should be a process of review that is fair. It seems to me it's not appropriate for the director to review his own decisions.
Mr. I'm sorry to interrupt. You're over 3 minutes. Could you wrap up your comments, please?
I certainly can.
Yeah.
So rather than have the director review or have it handle an appeal of his own decision for a suspension or revocation, I believe that it should be done by an administrative law judge. And in furtherance of that, any decision by the director to suspend or revoke ought to be held in abeyance until the review can be done on appeal by administrative law judge de novo. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mister. Next, we'll move on to Anton Simmons.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman and council members. My name is Antoine, and just a resident. I want to echo residential partners Island that it is inconceivable to me that this residents that live as I do within 200, 250 feet of a bar or restaurant that under the current regulation cannot play music are already in violation. Be given the opportunity to play that music and make our lives miserable. We've been here since 2004. We've been in dispute with this business since 2008. We've met with the owner and the managers. We thought we had an agreement where the business would tone the music down. That agreement went out the window shortly thereafter, and we're around 2011, 2000. Since then, we've had to deal with constant fights in the parking lot. Had to deal with couples having sex in the parking lot on top of the vehicle. We've had to deal with same issues of urination in the parking lot. Contacting the police is our only option. These officers have better things to do than to police business that has no intention of following the law as written, and you want to give them the opportunity to do what they've been doing all along, illegally. I cannot understand how this can happen. I stand firmly against passage of this bill. No business, no bar or restaurant should be allowed to play music in a residential community when there are homes within 200, 300 feet of their establishment. And it makes no difference to us whether it's indoor or outdoor music, because they play the music so loud that even when the doors are closed, and even now, as I sit here in my parking lot, they have speakers on the backside of their business playing music, disregard to the current regulation. So how can we expect these people, this business, to adhere to the new regulation when they won't even follow the current regulation? Stand against it. I ask that you do not pass.
Okay, all right, Councilwoman Bevins.
Yes, I believe, Mr. Antoine, I won't mention the establishment, but you're in Rosedale. And I know the establishment that you're talking about because I did receive an email from you. And I know that the music is played inside, not outside. If you're still on the line, can you tell me if you have been working? I know that you've probably called the police occasionally, but have you ever worked or called the liquor board about the establishment?
We have been in communication with the board, with the code enforcement for the past year. And
Sorry, I can hear. I can't hear.
we've
Could
been,
you repeat that, please?
we've been in communication with code enforcement for the past year. We've met with a gentleman by the name of Adam, who's come out, who's witnessed the noise complaints for himself. We've gotten no traction.
Okay, well, Mr. Mike Moeller is on this meeting, on this work session, and I would like you to, I have your information. You did send something to my office today, correct?
Yes, I have.
Okay, I'm going to send your email address over to Mr. Moeller because Mr. Moeller is the person that you want to be talking to, not code enforcement. Correct, Mr. Moeller?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, can you, are you able to divulge the establishment?
I'll do it publicly here, but I will.
Fine. Thank you. Send it to me tomorrow and I will check everything on the complaints that we've gotten and the police reports, and we will do our due diligence. Thank you.
Okay, is that fair, Mr. Antoine?
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Well, are there any additional comments by any of the members? I would just like to just take an opportunity to thank each and every one of the speakers for speaking out today. I can tell you that your comments were very thoughtful and they were very informative. I've certainly learned an awful lot today just listening to the speakers. And I think this process, by you coming forward, speaking out, will cause us to end up with a better bill. I think the administration is certainly coming forward to do something good. No one wants to do anything bad here. There are no sort of bad actors here. The idea is to do some good things for our businesses and give them an opportunity to, provide a service to the citizens that, their patrons. But at the same time, nobody wants to destroy neighborhoods or interfere with your peaceful enjoyment of your property. So I think the comments have been very good, and I'm pretty sure I know myself, and I speak for my colleagues, we heard every word you said, and we'll be taking all of this into consideration as we move forward. Do any of the members have any comments they'd like to make before we wrap up? Okay, thank you very, very much. And everyone have yourself a wonderful weekend, or no, the rest of the week. And we'll come back next week. And hopefully we'll have a much better bid. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.